This man came to Vietnam out of curiosity and a desire for new experiences. What he found in this distant Asian land kept him here, forging a lasting bond. He is not just a journalist sharing stories of aspiration and the spirit of a people pursuing their dreams, but also a storyteller who captures precious moments in the lives of unfamiliar faces. While his camera has taken Andy Solomon out into the world, it has also led him to discover the love of his life, a profound love for Vietnam and its people.
So today is our great pleasure to have you here with us, Mr. Andy Solomon. Welcome to Talk Vietnam.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
We are sitting in a very special space. It is an old French building, and it is also the venue of your exhibition, Hanoi to Remember. How do you feel?
Honestly, I'm overwhelmed. The reaction from visitors to the exhibition and from everyone who's had anything to do with the organization has been incredible. And I'm so happy that my photographs have had a chance finally to be shown in the city where they were taken, in some cases more than 30 years ago. I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, the exhibition was launched on the day that Hanoi commemorated the anniversary of the capital's liberation. Tell us more about that.
Well, that's correct. We actually only started to plan this exhibition in August. As we worked through it, we were then asked if we would be interested in opening it on the 10th of October as part of the 70th anniversary of the liberation of Hanoi. And we said, yeah, that's wonderful, yes please. And of course, being in such a beautiful building as well, a very prominent landmark really in the French part of Hanoi and here in Trung Dao. It's a great honor, and I think it's also the perfect setting for these photos. Of course, the building is a bit older than my photos, but these photos go back 32 years to 1992, an important point in Vietnam's journey in recent years.
Since you said that the photos here go back to 32 years ago, right? Was the time when you first came to Vietnam. What brought you here?
The honest answer is I was actually on my way somewhere else. I was a photojournalist working in London, freelance. I had an opportunity to go to Hong Kong earlier in 1992, but then I thought I should go somewhere else in Asia first. So I looked around and I thought, Vietnam looks really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, what made you feel interested in Vietnam at that time?
Because I didn't know enough about what life was like in Vietnam. Vietnam was only just beginning to open up. And it interested me. I thought it was probably a country that was on the cusp of something bigger. Yeah. I didn't know what I would find. It was hard to find much information about what was happening inside Vietnam, because in those days there was no internet. You know, there was hardly any foreign press based here in Hanoi. And I was always drawn to places that were less visited. I always say that I'm a terrible tourist, but I'm a very good traveler. And so I thought, let's see if I can go to Hanoi, let's see if I can go to Vietnam. The truth be told, it wasn't easy. It was difficult because I was a journalist. I was an independent journalist, a photographer. I started off by visiting the Vietnamese embassy in London. Eventually I managed to get a 1-month visa to come, but I had to have a program with the Foreign Press Center under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And my first surprise was really the moment I arrived. Flying in over the Red River Delta, you could see the scars of war on the ground. You could see the bomb craters. And then as you came into Noi Bai Airport, you could still have the anti-aircraft guns around the perimeter. They're still not used anymore, of course, but they were still there. And the airport is nothing like it is now. It was a very small place with very few planes coming in each day. Right. That was my first introduction to what I found to be the freedom of being able to move around in Hanoi. And then when I started to work with the Foreign Press Center and we worked out my program as to, I wanted to travel around the country. Mm-hmm. All of my requests were, so yeah, we can do that. And I was amazed, and it was brilliant. It was wonderful.
Andy Solomon was not the first foreign journalist to work in Vietnam as the country began its process of regional and international integration, but his connection with Vietnam has kept him here much longer than most other foreigners. From 1992 to 1999, as a photojournalist working with major newspaper and news agencies, Andy Solomon helped present the image of an open Vietnam, showcasing its people's friendliness and efforts to develop the nation. Instead of focusing on macro-level changes, his photographs from these years capture the simple lives and enduring optimism of Vietnamese people across the country. After living and working in Vietnam, Andy joined Reuters and began to travel to other developing countries. Nevertheless, Vietnam and Hanoi remain close to his heart, and the photos he took during his early days here continue to leave a lasting impression on him.
92 is the year before the U.S. lifted the embargo on Vietnam. It was also the year that Vietnam started open up, as you said. When you came to Vietnam at that time as a photographer, as a journalist, did you expect to find special materials in Vietnam to film and to record as a journalist?
Yes, exactly. I was always drawn to places that might be different and authentic as well. I really wanted to see what the impact of all of that had been over so many years of struggle. The consequences of the US embargo, as far as I was concerned, were utterly cruel. I was able to visit hospitals that were unable to buy certain equipment because it included US components inside. I think I was very fortunate to choose that time to come, because the policy of Doi Moi and the first laws on foreign investment had been started and promulgated.
Do you remember the photos, the first few photos that you took when you first set foot in Vietnam?
The first few photos I took were on the streets of Hanoi. Not so much in the center of Hanoi, it was on the other side of the dike near the Red River. On my third day I think. I walked from Thong Dan Street across the dike down towards the Red River, and I found a very poor area where people had nearly nothing. My first feeling was I stepped across the dike and I went down the hill towards the water was, is this area safe? Within a few steps, all of my worries disappeared. I saw smiling faces. I saw people coming out, they have their hands extended towards me, asking to shake my hand, inviting me to sit down and drink tea. They welcomed me with open arms. They were desperately poor, they had nearly nothing, but what they had, they wanted to share. And they would never allow me to pay for anything. And so there are lots of little stories like that. This one here behind you, which is the cyclo drivers in the old quarter. And in a house opposite that, there was a woman with two very small children, and she came out of her house with a bunch of roses and gave them to me. And it was just always in my mind. There was no reason for the lady in the house to come out and arrange to give me flowers. This man here behind us, if I recall, I think that's in Dien Bien Phu, and he had his new baby. It was lunchtime, and I was walking on the road, and he came over to me and just kind of showed me his baby. What I experience is always great hospitality, great kindness.
And you said that you thought you were lucky when you found yourself in Vietnam at a special time, just right after Đổi Mới, and the country was in a transitioning period. Did your work focus on that, and your photos could capture the essence of that?
Yes. Through my program with the Foreign Ministry, the Foreign Press Center, I would go and I would visit a factory, or I'd visit a hospital, or somewhere, school maybe. I would have an interview with the director, or maybe the head of foreign relations, or whoever the appropriate person was. They would share lots of information with me about their department or their organization. I believe now, when I look back, that one of the reasons that I was given such extraordinary access and freedom to go to places was really that Vietnam had a message that it wanted to get out to the world. The message starts with, we're here, we're open, we're friendly, we're at peace, we're looking towards the future. The officials and the locations, the hospitals, the factories, the government departments, everyone that I met in the provinces, were very open. What I found was a country and a people that were looking forward. They weren't carrying grudges. They weren't feeling sorry for themselves. They could see opportunity ahead. They had dreams, and they were working hard to try to achieve those dreams or begin to go on a path to achieve those dreams.
During his years working in Vietnam, Andy Solomon spent time traveling to remote areas where development lagged behind urban centers. He sought an authentic understanding of the Vietnamese people by immersing himself in the local culture, from daily life to traditional activities. The lives of ethnic communities in the northernmost regions of the country or in the remote central highlands, the atmosphere of labor in the mining areas of Quang Ninh or Cao Bang, the cultural and religious beauty that is rarely seen nowadays. Immersing himself in the lives of the Vietnamese people, participating in their daily activities, and listening to their everyday stories have inspired Andy Solomon to enrich his artistic style. This experience fueled his journey to continue capturing the beauty of nature and the cultural life of people around the world for many years to come.
So, you thought you were going to Hong Kong, and then you ended up in Hanoi.
Yes.
How long did you stay in Hanoi, and then maybe decided for yourself, I would stay here?
Right, there were a few things that decided my fate, I suppose. The first was that in a month there wasn't enough time to do everything. So I ended up being able to stay for 3.5 months the first time. But there was something else that also happened to me, which was that I met a girl. I met a Vietnamese lady, and she's my wife. You know, we were married in 1994, so it gave me another reason, or the biggest reason, to want to stay here. And it wasn't easy, but I did go to Hong Kong after 3.5 months, but only for 2 or 3 months. And then I returned, and then I stayed until the end of 1999.
But you also traveled to other places, for example, in Cao Bang, Hà Giang, or the Central Highlands and South Central Coast. What about those remote areas that attract your attention?
A country is the sum total of its land, its landscape, its history, and all of the people or peoples within it. And I knew that Vietnam was comprised of 54 different ethnic minorities. I was just interested to go to places that not many foreign photographers had been able to go to, especially in the north. And I was able to go and visit ethnic minority villages. I was able to, being in Mong Kai, there was a lot of beginning of trade. There was no bridge across the Kalong River then. There was just a customs quay, little boats going backwards and forwards. And again, you could see that there was a desire for things to get better into the future. And talking to the officials in these different provinces as well about how they plan to rebuild. So it was a very, very interesting time. And so we had some very memorable adventures on those journeys. I would travel in a UAT, the old Soviet Jeep, with a driver and with a guide from the Foreign Press Center. For me as a photographer, I'm comfortable in any environment. So I'm comfortable working with very senior people or heads of state or big important people, and I'm equally comfortable sitting in a very poor bamboo hut on the side of a mountain with a family of farmers, say, because I think all of the stories are valid. They're all part of the bigger picture. And I remember being in Dien Bien, in those days, very small town. But while we were there, there was a travelling theatre group that were performing, and they came from the south, and they were performing Kai Leung. They did 4 nights. I only saw 1 night, and everyone was there from different ethnic minorities, the whole town, and people from all around, because maybe 2,000 people. There was no internet, but there was no electricity. If people wanted to watch television, they would have to go to a cafe that had a generator. You know, there was no street lights, just oil lamps. And that night was so special. The actors were wonderfully welcoming to me. And then the audience themselves were, partly they were watching the performance, and partly they were watching me.
Taking photos.
Yeah, so I remember it was really dark. You know, the stage had some lights, but the audience was completely dark, pitch black. And we had great fun. A very innocent time, I think.
Some of your photos depicting special circumstances that I didn't think foreigners can, get access to very often. For example, you took photo of a woman giving birth, or a patient in a leprosy village. So tell me more about those photos.
It's a really interesting question, and I'm really glad that you've asked it actually. And this, again, is a reflection of the access that I was able to have through working with the Foreign Press Center. That I said to them, I really want to learn about Vietnam. So I went to a number of hospitals. In Hanoi, I went to what's now people call Bệnh viện C, was then called the Institute for Protection of Mothers and Newborn. I went to the Institute for Traditional Medicine. I went to hospitals in Pleiku, in Hue, maybe some others as well. So the photograph that you're referring to is of a woman, and she's in a lot of discomfort just before she gives birth. It's not important to show her face, but also it shows a room that's not so modern, quite poor. But again, it showed how the hospital itself had great doctors, had wonderful knowledge, was doing really important work for women in Hanoi. But they lacked the money, they lacked the equipment. When you're in the main maternity hospital in Hanoi, and they had a few incubators for premature babies, but only a few, maybe 10 or 12 that I saw. And it's very sad to see that. So my access to these places, I think, probably was partly to do with wanting Vietnam needing to get the story out. I took the picture very simply because it's the beginning of life. Because on one level it looks very desperately poor, but then on another level it also shows how far Vietnam has come. This is what women went through in 1992, and I've had some conversations with some older women here just yesterday about looking at that picture, and they were telling me their memories of giving birth in that hospital. And interestingly, my two sons were also born in that same hospital.
Yeah.
The first one just 2.5 years after that picture was taken.
Okay.
So I have also a kind of a personal connection with that place.
I see. Yeah.
Opened on October the 10th, 2024, the exhibition titled Hanoi to Remember marks a significant milestone as it is the first time Andy Solomon's photographs have been taken out of his personal archives and presented to the public. More than 40 of Andy's photos, combined with over 40 others by photographer Lê Bích, form a collection of 86 images depicting Hanoi's developmental journey from 1992 to 2012.
Ảnh của Lê Bích và Andy Solomon ấy, thì tôi nên thấy rằng đấy là những cái khung cảnh mà rất là đời thường của Hà Nội. Thay vì là quen thuộc những ảnh hơi tính chất lễ hội này, hay là kiểu khung cảnh hoành tráng đại cảnh của Hà Nội, thì đây những cảnh rất là nho nhỏ, những cái cảnh sinh hoạt ấy, những con người, và thậm chí cái hay nhất là cái sự chú thích rất là kỹ càng. Thì tôi nghĩ đấy làm cho cái bức ảnh nó dày hơn rất nhiều.
Mục đích cuối cùng của nhiếp ảnh là sự rung động. Thì trong triển lãm này tôi thấy rằng là mặc dù là hai tác giả là hai đời sống về địa lý khác nhau, nhưng mà có cái tần số dung vậy, và chính cái đó là cái mà tôi thấy rằng là tôi đánh giá rất là tốt về cái triển lãm này, bởi vì nó phản ánh được Hà Nội ở những giai đoạn khác nhau. Cái hay, cái đẹp của cái triển lãm này là cái tính chân thực của nó.
The exhibition has attracted visitors from near and far, both domestic and international, spanning multiple generations. For those who have lived through the ups and downs of history, the photographs of Andy Solomon and Leibig evoke memories of challenging times while also instilling pride in the positive changes that have taken place. For the younger generation, the exhibition offers fresh perspectives on what previous generations experienced.
Well, I think your work is really important because it helps put together a narrative of Vietnam at that time. Do you have like a style? Because I notice in all of your photos, black and white or colors, it is the human.
Yeah, I do shoot some sort of landscape photography. I'm often looking for the opportunity for beautiful photographs that just look nice as kind of art pictures. But the thing that's always interested me most is the human story. The majority of these pictures were taken on the street with ordinary people, having their ordinary lives, doing the things they did every day. And those were the things that actually were the most interesting to me. I'm not a photographer who necessarily just sort of walks along a street and goes chuk, 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 chuk. I enjoy meeting people and spend time with people. Sometimes I get the camera out, sometimes I don't get the camera out. I want people to be at ease and comfortable. I want them to feel that they don't have to do anything special for me as well. It's a question I've been asked quite a lot over the last week. You know, all of your pictures have people, why? Or all of your pictures have workers, people working, why? I said, well, that's what life was. That's what I saw in front of me, myself. And then my photographs, I hope, come closer to capturing the essence of what's in front of me.
And why are the pictures in black and white?
I did shoot a lot of colour as well, but I've always loved black and white. So when I was travelling, I was doing two types of photography. I was shooting photographs for sort of stock libraries, agencies, so general illustrative pictures of Vietnam, which would go into agencies and they would be available to be sold to magazines or newspapers or whoever. But then I was shooting what I called my pictures, and many of the pictures here are my pictures. They're for me. I'm not thinking about the commercial potential of them. I'm thinking about my own photography and the stories that I want to tell, the ones that are closer to my heart. So black and white can be very evocative. Sometimes I think that black and white is actually more colourful than colour, because if you look at colour photos, you see the colour, but you don't necessarily so quickly see the story. You know, so you strip away the physical colour and let the colour come out of the story itself.
I also understand that you have reunited with some of the people you took photos of, and so can you tell us more about that?
Yes, on Saturday we held a meeting here where myself and Leibig were talking about some of the photographs, and there's a photograph of a school assembly, all the children lined up of mine in 1992, Nguyen Du School, as it was then called, primary school. And we found 6 people from that photograph. Social media is very powerful. If you find one person from a class, there's a good chance that some of the others will still be in contact with each other. So we found them. And they came, and it was very emotional, actually. And I photographed them again with that picture. And now you look at them, and they're modern and affluent and have comfortable lives, good jobs. And you look at them in 1992 and they had old plastic sandals and very poor clothes. The transformation just captures and summarizes what's happened in this city in that, by global standard, such a short time. Background to the reuniting. This is something that I started a few years ago. The first part of that was that I had some photographs I took at a firecracker festival at a village called Dong Qui in Bac Ninh province. The last year that firecrackers were allowed, in 1994, and it was a very dangerous place with lots of explosions and big firecrackers and very dramatic And I put some of these pictures up on Instagram and Facebook about 3 years ago, thinking nothing more of it. And within a short time, I was contacted by loads of people from Donkey village itself. A girl who said to me, in this picture, there's a picture of carrying a great big, enormous firecracker. There's maybe 50 men carrying this thing. And she said, that man there is my grandfather. And then there was another man that also contacted me and said, this other picture has got my grandfather and my father in it. That made me think about the power of these photographs and actually how important some of my photographs were, because back in those days, people didn't have cameras. A lot of the stories and a lot of the memories are carried in folklore. They're spoken. The festival still exists to this day, but without firecrackers. They have wooden copies now. They don't have many souvenirs really from those days. So last time I was back, 2023, I went to visit Donkey and to take those pictures back to them. It was so wonderful. And so that then made me think, okay, I can do this. It's possible to find people, because again, it's about telling that story about how their lives have transformed maybe over the last 30 years. And so this is a much bigger project, trying to reunite people and look at the narrative of their lives.
Is there someone that you most want to find, but you haven't been able to find?
Here, actually, yes. In the entrance downstairs, there's a picture of 2 children, close up, just of their faces, very small children, and they are just full of joy. They are laughing, and I remember the day where they saw me, and as I was walking around a small lane somewhere, and they ran up to me and they were laughing and so excited because they hadn't seen foreigners before, I suppose. Yeah. And that picture just captures for me the curiosity, but more than that, the excitement. And now they will be probably 36 years old maybe. So, and it would be lovely to find them.
Right.
So, but I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah.
Phillip Alley, one of the places Andy Solomon visited Hanoi during his early days. Here lives the family of a person he once photographed. And now he finally had the opportunity to revisit them.
Em muốn nói rất là xin lỗi bởi vì lâu lắm là không về đây, 30 năm, 30 năm. Đây là một kỷ niệm, một ngày rất là hạnh phúc. Sương nhà uống rượu.
Hồi đó là đến xong rồi uống rượu.
Tháng Giêng năm 93.
Năm 93. Xúc động quá đấy.
The woman couldn't hold back her tears when she saw the photograph of her late father, taken by Andy Solomon in the family's old ancestral hall, which no longer exists. These emotions are exactly what Andy Solomon hopes to evoke in his personal project, Echoes, Vietnam Retraced. Not only in Hanoi, but he also traveled to various locations in the northern mountainous regions and the Central Highlands, seeking out the individuals who appeared in his photos to offer them a gift they never knew they had. For Andy, this journey is a way to give back to the seemingly small and anonymous people who have had a profound impact on his life. Reliving those cherished memories with them is perhaps his greatest happiness.
Vietnam now, and Vietnam and Hanoi and other places, localities, 32 years ago, as you said, big change has happened. What do you feel about that development of Hanoi and Vietnam?
I think in the early days, I think there was a sense of out with the old, in with the new, modern is better. And I think in the first phase in Hanoi, the years that I lived here, you saw it going gently. And then as we reached the year 2000, it started to accelerate as Vietnam was integrated properly into ASEAN and then APEC and other global organizations. And that breakneck speed of development, and Hanoi, of course, grew massively, really, really quickly. Roads were being built and infrastructure was being developed and very important stuff, but at the same time a lot of things were being lost. Your identity, anyone's identity, is not just about what's going to come in the future, it's about where you've come from before. And history is intimately intertwined with your personal identity. And when I look at the old quarter, so much has been lost. But hopefully, as we go forward into the future, there can be a balance between building the new and preserving in a useful way, not just as museums, but trying to find a way to preserve architectural heritage, because that's the fabric of the city.
Right.
London, for example, that I know very well, and other British cities, is sometimes they will redevelop what's inside, but they keep the facade on the front. So the character of the street remains the same, but the quality of the accommodation behind becomes better. But there's also something else I want to say, and that is that when I've travelled out into the countryside, and especially 2 years ago, because I on motorbike, when I was looking for people, I probably went maybe 2,000 kilometres between Ho Chi Minh City and then in the Central Highlands and to Da Nang. And I was so incredibly impressed by the roads. When I was first travelling in 1992, very, very bumpy, very, very slow, nearly no traffic, and now you're straight, you know, even on a motorbike, not motorways, not the highways, but just the ordinary roads. So communications are so much better now. And another big, big change that I've seen, which is also related to this, and related to this question, is that when I was first here, people in the city weren't particularly interested about going to the mountains and going to these areas that were, because the city was modern and the city was better and life was easier here, and then the countryside it was much poorer. But now you have people in the city who want to go and visit the mountains. They want to go hiking, they want to go camping, they want to go touring around, they want to visit different places. And that's also wonderful because it means they learn more about their own country, their own peoples, and the different standard of living in different parts of the country. And there's some very, very beautiful places.
So I want to ask you, what about Vietnam, what about Hanoi that makes you feel so close to it and be part of it?
There's a very famous photographer called Henri Cartier-Bresson, and he used to describe what he called the decisive moment. So for me, my decisive moment was arriving in Hanoi. I'm a son-in-law of Vietnam, and I have been for 30 years now since we got married. And it's a place that I've come back to, and I've come back to, and I've come back to. And even now, when I arrived, when I first walked down the street, and there's all the different food, there's all the people out being very sociable. Life is lived. I just couldn't help but have a great big smile on my face.
Right.
It's a completely different place on many levels, but there's one thing that remains mostly unchanged, and that's the Hanoians and the Vietnamese people and how they are with each other. And no matter how much this city develops and changes, that hasn't changed.
And I saw on your personal page that you have some very interesting videos about souvenirs that you brought from Vietnam to England. What did you buy?
Yeah, I'd forgotten that I'd done this, to tell you the truth. These little videos were done during lockdown a few years ago, because during lockdown we all get bored, right? We have to find new things to do. Yeah. So I decided to do something, a strange little thing, to raise some money for charity. And I have a charity that I support, which is called Just a Drop, who do water projects. They help bring clean water to people in difficult places around the world. And so I started to look for different things, because I've travelled all over the world many times, and so I collected a few silly things. So I would just do these short videos describing these objects. So I think from Vietnam there were a few. There's a khen hamong, the musical instrument, that was given to me in Dong Van. A ceramic plate to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the foundation of the People's Police. These are things that just have sentimental value. There was actually one thing that was special, and that was some original artwork for stamps done in 1980, quite old, which the artist himself gave me many years ago. One was showing had the victory at Dien Bien and the victory in Ho Chi Minh City in Saigon, but original artwork, and that's very precious to me.
So, are you documenting Hanoi now at this moment? And do you have any future projects with Hanoi and Vietnam?
Yes, I do. Actually, having this exhibition has helped me rediscover the innocence and the joy that I had when I was first here. Because when you spend too long somewhere, even the unusual can start to appear normal. You know, when I was selecting these pictures, I was looking for pictures of things that I remember as being typical of Hanoi. And one of the things I was looking for were bicycle repairmen. You know, they were on every street corner. You paid 100 or 200 dong to get your tire pumped, and you know, they were there everywhere. And now they've gone. But I looked through my pictures and I have hardly any, because it was so common and so normal. So this exhibition, I think, has given me the opportunity to try to remember what it was like to have fresh eyes, and to go back and do some of the same things in different places that I would do before. So that means walking down the street, seeing one woman or man with a very small stall selling a bit of cheddar or something, and just sitting down, speaking with them, buying a drink, and then maybe taking some photographs, which is how I did a lot of my photography before. For many years, people who I've shown some of my photos to from the early time that I was here, I said, "Oh, Andy, you've got to publish a book, or you've got to show these pictures." And it's such a privilege to be able to bring these pictures together, show them in such a beautiful place, be part of the 70th anniversary of Hanoi liberation, and I hope that my work will continue to interest people. I mean, there's been a lot of young people coming to this exhibition, and they're kind of going, wow, you know, because it's not the Hanoi they know. And when they see the change and how hard life used to be compared to now, they're educating themselves, they're learning more about who they are themselves. And if my photos can help document that and help people understand more about where they come from.
Thank you for your love for Hanoi, for Vietnam, for Vietnamese people. I hope that many people out there would get inspired by your story, by your photos, and they can join hands with us to document part of the history of Hanoi, of Vietnam, and make them more beautiful.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. It's been wonderful.
And that has wrapped up this edition of Talk Vietnam. Thank you for watching, and see you again in our other episodes.